Hello everyone and welcome back to JB Subtle Gaming, where today we're going to take a look at the Phantasma. This is currently my favorite weapon in Warframe, and while I really like this weapon when it came out, it's interesting. It's a beam shotgun where the beams function like pellets in a pellet shotgun. We'll talk about how that works in a second here if you're not familiar with that. And then it has a secondary fire where you charge up, you can either click it and fire basically two shots out of the magazine. It shoots this globule that if it hits something nearby you, an enemy or a wall or something like that, it will blow up and will do self-damage to you, so it can kill you very easily. Be careful about that. Or you can charge it up and send out your entire clip by charging it up and letting it go. It's a really interesting weapon, and it's a weapon I really enjoyed using, but I wasn't sure if I'd really be able to use it in endgame content because I wasn't sure it would be quite powerful enough. It was powerful, but there's better stuff out there, so could I really justify it? Well, a certain mod that came out, not this time with Borrow, but I believe last time, I know it was recently, changed my mind, and I think you can actually use this weapon in endgame. So we'll show some footage of that shortly here, but let's talk about the actual build. So the weapon I'm talking about is primed charged shell. So a lot of these you would expect to see prime point blank if you have it. Hell's Chamber for the multi-shot. Now one thing I do want to point out is that I definitely think Vigilante Armaments also fits into this. I would maybe replace Vicious Spread or something like that with Vigilante Armaments. Again, build however you want to build. Don't just follow anyone's suggestions. This is just a video showing off something I think is cool and interesting that you can do with this weapon. But one thing that's nice about the multi-shot is Hell's Chamber has 120. This will bring it up to 180, and it makes the secondary fire better. Right now, if I do a secondary fire, whether I click or hold down, I'm going to shoot two globules, if you will, 80% of the time, and 20% of the time I'll shoot three. If I put this on, it'll be reversed. 80% of the time I'll shoot three of them, 20% of the time I'll shoot two. So if you really want to rely on that secondary fire, then this is a interesting and good mod I think to put on. And even in general, it's a good mod to put on. The mod I kind of question is this Vicious Spread. The reason I was willing to put it on is I basically want to get to as big numbers as possible, whether I'm shooting my secondary or primary, and 90% damage is quite a bit, and in my opinion 60% spread doesn't really hurt this very much. It's like other beam weapons where it kind of wiggles around a little bit, makes it look a little bit funky, but in my opinion it doesn't really hurt the accuracy. This is a short range weapon anyways, so again, this may or may not fit in your build. It's my personal preference to have this on over Vigilante Armaments, but I think most people actually might want to go for this, just to point that out. Now the reason why I wanted to show this off, and I think this weapon is potentially really good, is because this is a weapon that you can get to 100% status chance with 3 of the dual status mods. So what are these? So they have 60% damage of a status and then 60% status chance. So you want to bear in mind, normally on a pellet shotgun, if you can get to 100% status before you add multi-shot to it, then every pellet of that will be guaranteed the proc status. So if you have 99% status and then you shoot 10 pellets, basically each of those pellets is going to have a 9.9% chance at proc status. It splits up between those. But if you hit 100% before you add multi-shot, that's the magic number. Once you get there, then all of your pellets will, even after you add multi-shot. Now, it's a little bit weird with this one in particular. Multi-shot does not actually add to the status chance. If, say, we were to remove this, where is our status right now? It's at 81, and I add Hell's Chamber. It does not add to it on this one. It will on pellet shotguns, though. So you want to be careful that your multi-shot is off before you're checking when you get to 100%. But one of the things that makes this weapon interesting is if you're using something like the Taker's Prime or something like that, which is obviously an endgame weapon, in many people's opinion, the best weapon in the game, you have to have 4 of these. In this case, we only have to have 3. Now, once we get to that 100% status, having more doesn't do us any good. All of our pellets, or in this case, all of our beams, are going to do 100% no matter what. So we can put on something else. Now, we could just put on regular charge shell here, and if we do that, that's fine, and we're getting 90% instead of 60%. But what really, in my opinion, changed it and made this weapon powerful enough really to bring into higher level content is we're now getting 165% electricity damage. Now, the build I went for here is mostly corrosive. We do have, the impact that comes on the weapon, and I believe that mostly comes when you shoot your secondary weapon and hit things with it, but I'm not sure about that. We do have heat on here. I did try a blast build where I had one of the cold mods on here, and it's interesting. Blast isn't necessarily the best damage to use on high-end targets, especially armor targets and things like that. However, it does act as a bit of crowd control because you're knocking the targets down, because the blast damage ends up being the second most common thing to be procced, and bear in mind we have 100%. We're going to proc a lot of status with this weapon. So you can use it as a crowd control build. If you're fighting against higher level enemies, if you're not tanky enough to take hits, it can, kind of CC enemies for you. So that is something interesting you can do. But again, I want to go for kind of the most damage, and that's what I'll show off later in this video when we show some high level enemies. So corrosive is going to proc the most because you multiply these by 4. Technically, impact and heat are close to each other, but I'm not quite sure. I think the impact may only trigger on that secondary fire. But it's a pretty interesting build. We have a little bit of radiation, so this, again, build is good against, if we're going against the high-level corpus enemies, we're going to be stripping armor. The radiation, is good against some of the other, basically they have 2 armor types. Corrosive is good against one, radiation against the other, and then the corrosive proc is going to be good against any armored enemy by stripping their armor. So that's the build overall. You'd expect the point blank, but expect health chamber. Definitely vigilante armaments is an option, but I really think this right here is what takes it over the top. So we can see, here's our 3 dual stat mods. This is a personal preference. Like I said, vigilante armaments is probably good, especially if you want to use a lot of the secondary fire. But if you don't believe me, if you don't believe you can really take this to kind of high-end content, here at the end of the video we'll show off. I just joined a new clan today because mine wasn't really doing anything and people weren't really playing anymore, and in the first night I joined we ended up doing a 70 round defense mission. We ended up with basically level 200 enemies at the end, so we'll show off a little footage at the end of that so you can see this in action. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Like, share, subscribe for more content, but like I said, I really enjoyed this weapon. Wanted to show off what it can do. You'll see a little bit of me using the basic quick secondary fire, a little bit of the charge secondary fire, and some of the primary fire. Near the end we started taking some damage to the target, so I made sure that I was on the ground and using my stomp and CCing a little bit. But hopefully you guys will enjoy that footage as well and see how powerful this weapon can really be in endgame content and just how fun of a weapon in general, thanks in large part to the addition of Prime Charge Shell. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and we will talk to you again soon.
Yeah, they're 150. Just don't notice. Okay, you just like lashed me.
No. I haven't played Warframe since Flames of Island.
Okay.
Is the game different?
A lot.
It's a lot more grindier.
Oh, even more grinding?
Yeah, that was literally the last patch note. 50% more grind.
I don't know. Constant.
Spread, spread, spread.
Constant.
Spread the butter.
Banshee's still good.
Eh?
Not the constant damage, and you can go and stay and leave. So.
Yo, Gilmore, you've got to keep going and get 5,000 kills.
How many am I at now?
4,680.
Yeah. I could probably get that before this into this.
Have they been dropping?
I mean, I think we've been running over them. Just haven't noticed.
I haven't noticed them dropping recently.
I'm sitting on 26.
I can't look right now.
Yeah, I've got 13. It's a good farm though, I mean.
Yeah, well, if I can keep any energy going. Ah! Big bastard.
Do Rhino Roars stack? I mean, you're 3.
Get me.
Sorry, I thought one of them were going to.
Yeah, like, unlike all y'all, I don't get a damage reduction. I'm just out here eating all the damage.
How you think I feel?
You got a 95% reduction. You can deal. Well, not 95. You got a reduction at least.
No, I don't.
You do. It's at least 50.
How is that?
Better than nothing. I have no reduction at all.
Where's my reduction come from?
You're, you're 2. No, you're 1.
You need the augment for that.
You don't. The augment allows you to detonate it.
Leave now or continue fighting. Very impressive, Tenno. You
Yeah.
held them all
Each
back.
star 5%. You can get up to 95%. I like how we did the same amount of damage, the same percent of the damage, but my kills were much higher. Let's see, total melee kills 300. Fire accuracy 59%. Pickup count 5,068. And you're a Rhino Prime, weren't you? It's funny, really strange.